All right, welcome everybody to Three Questions to Better Business. I'm Michael Davis of Speaking CPR. If you wanted to see me last week at the very last minute, I got ill. Nothing major, but it was enough where I would not have done a very nice job with my friend Ray Engen. So we're going to postpone that to another week. But here we are this week. Joining me this week is my friend Tom Borg. Tom is a business consultant and thought leader. He's been in business for over a quarter century. And he does a lot of work with culture, but specifically what we're going to talk about today is how to create a drama-free workplace. So Tom, very good to have you with us.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and Tom and I are in the same actually coaching group, and he did some work for me earlier this year that I just thought was outstanding. I've taken some of these different personality tests, and I took Tom's, and it's unique because it had me nailed about 98.6%. And I thought, that's pretty good. And there were some things in there I didn't like, but you got to face yourself in the mirror sometimes. But we're not here to talk about that today. That may come up in the course of our questions, but let's jump right into question number one about creating a drama-free workplace. Tom, what's the biggest challenge that you're seeing people face today that you're helping them overcome with regard to drama in the workplace?
Michael, it has been, it probably will be, and it is right now, the problem with open and clear communication. People oftentimes assume that the person they're talking with communicates or listens the same way they do. And this is when we start getting into some trouble because not everyone's wired the same. So what happens is when we assume certain things that we've communicated to another person that we feel have been communicated properly and they haven't been, that's when things start to go awry.
That's pretty true in life in general, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yes, it is.
And I don't know if I sent this to you. I just read an article this week. It was published recently by SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management.
Hmm.
The calculation came out to be $4,200 per employee per year lost productivity, lost bottom line because of poor communication.
Yes, yes, and that's painful when the people start to hear those types of statistics because it does go directly to their bottom line. It's something they're not aware of. You can't really see it on a profit and loss sheet unless you have a way of measuring that. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and if you have a little over 200 employees, that's $1 million a year. It's
Yes.
an expensive problem. And it's one of the reasons I do what I do, not just standing up and giving speeches, but giving presentations to people in the boardroom, uh, to potential investors within your teams. It has impact all over the place, but it helps guys like you and me stay in business for a long time too.
That's right. We're just trying to help people solve their problems.
That's exactly it. But one of the most important lessons I learned as a speech coach was it's not what I say, it's what you hear.
Exactly.
And I sit in meetings with coaches and trainers every week, and I'm astounded at how much people are sitting there waiting to say what they've got to say.
Yes.
And I see them, it's like this, there's two ships passing in the night, they're just not connecting.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a challenge. That's a challenge, I think, for most businesses. Hey, it's you said earlier, it's a challenge for most families, for heaven's sakes. But the key is to be aware first, and then to take some action that's going to allow you to be even better at communicating and making sure people are hearing what you're saying and making sure you're hearing what they're saying and making that bridge work together.
How do we do that?
I like to go to a study that was done by Delta Airlines some years ago, and they wanted to poll their customers, and they wanted to find out what were the top four things that were most important to them. Now, this study is a great example of any business when it comes to what their customers or clients really want from them. There's
Mhm.
four questions people want to know an answer to. They're not going to ask you verbally. Now, I'm talking about your clients and customers. They're not going to ask you these questions, but they sure want to know the answers. First question is, do you like me? So how do we even demonstrate? How would you think we could demonstrate to a client that we like them? What are some of the easy, simple ways?
First is ask questions, take an interest in them.
Yes, yes, exactly. Good eye contact along with that. At the same time, Be friendly, smile. Some of the things that we normally would do with people we like, yeah. So do you like me? That's the first question. Second question, do you care about me? Now, what do you suppose would be some of the obvious ways we could show people that we care about them?
Same thing. Ask questions. And then once you and don't just accept the first answer, dig a little deeper and ask follow-up questions.
Absolutely. And do we take notes? Oh, hey, last time we spoke, you mentioned something about your son getting ready to start into karate lessons. How's that going? So we do little things like that where we mental notes that show people we really do care. So first two questions: do you like me? Do you care about me? Second, or the third question is, do you do the things that allow me to trust you? So can I trust you? That would be the third question for them. And how do you suppose we do that with our clients?
I think the biggest thing is under promise and over deliver, but everything you say you're going to do it and within the time frame you promised is probably the biggest that comes to mind to me for me.
Absolutely. When we think about that in our own businesses, let's say we have employees. Well, do you do what you say you're going to do for your employee when he says, I need to get this new software program? Oh, yeah, we're going to get to that. We'll get that. We're going to get that budgeted and we'll be able to help you get that installed. And if you don't do that, that's a form of mistrust that you're building.
Mm-hmm.
It might be just, hey, I'll call you back by a certain time, or not opening our emails and answering people's emails that are sent to us. That's a form of trust when we do that promptly and in a systematic way. So these are just some of the simple things. It doesn't have to be where the person's taking money out of the a company. That's no, not that at all. So what we're
Right.
saying here is we need to just take a look at those first three things. One, do you like me? Do you care about me? Can I trust you? Now the fourth one, do you know what you're doing? That's the question they have for us. In other words, are you a professional? Are you demonstrating competence? Are you able to follow through on things you're supposed to follow through with some insights that you know what you're doing, that you've earned the right over the years, the experience you've gotten, the education you've received, the training you continue to get? This is another part of that. So if we can answer those four questions, I think we're on our way to building this communication bridge that we need to build with not just our clients, but with our employees and with our family members as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Tom. I just this morning read an article that referenced Stephen Covey's Seven Habits. And
Hmm.
specifically, what the article pointed out was his concept of the emotional bank account.
Yes,
Every time you do what you say you're going to do, every time you ask a question and you show interest, you're putting money into that emotional account.
that's right.
And every time you don't, you're draining the account. And there
That's
comes a
right.
point where it's zero and there is no business that will come from that point forward.
You know, absolutely. And Michael, we've all heard the statement, you only get one chance to make a good first impression.
Yeah,
Yet, we are always making those first impressions. Every time we get back with that person, the beginning of that conversation, we're making that first impression.
absolutely. Now, the second question that I have actually, we really touched upon to a point, but you might go a little deeper here. What's the best process to use to overcome this problem of drama in the workplace?
Well, I think one of the main places we can begin is certainly with that any type of I don't like to use the word performance review because that's becoming an outdated word. It should really, or phrase, it should be where we have ongoing communication with say, our employees or our clients to just assess where they are, how are we doing. This is a great way to begin. So to have that open communication back and forth and to just know where you stand with that person in terms of are you fulfilling their expectations. So that's the first part. Second part would be what I love to use, and you mentioned a bit earlier, assessments. These scientifically validated assessment instruments. That was one of the best ways to unlock that door to understanding the other person. How do they like to be communicated to? How don't they want to be communicated to? What's their behavioral style like? What are some of their driving forces, or what are some of the things they do, or why do they do some of the things they do? That's the motivators section there. So the key there is, do we understand people? And sometimes what we need to do is get a good scientifically validated assessment to help us do that. So assessments, great way to open that door and keep it going. Of course, the other way is, of course, is just having transparency within the organization. We mentioned that a little bit earlier, but the idea of having that trust that goes both ways, and that the company stands for something, and it is a mission statement that people believe in. That's all part of that trust process that people possess when they look at working for an organization, or if they look at the people that work for them. It's the same thing. Goes back and forth.
You mentioned mission statements. Let's follow up on that for a moment.
Hmm.
I've been a proponent for years that mission statements typically are put together by a board in an office which is so disconnected from their people and their clients that it's just platitudes on a wall that nobody pays attention to. How could a mission statement put together like that add to drama in the workplace?
Well, and you're right on the money with that, because mission statements are so in stone sometimes. They've created one years back and no one even knows where it's at. They don't know what it is. And at the same time, no one's had an opportunity to be a participant in creating that mission statement. I always tell my clients, you should be revisit that mission statement and vision statement every year, because times change, things change, people change. Get people back together, get your company back together, and go through that mission statement and do some editing. Maybe you want to just throw the whole thing out and start over again. But certainly look at that mission statement as a reflection of the values of what people are expecting to be upheld within your organization, the values that they have personally that connect with these values, so that they're on the same page. And at the same time, when you do this, you are creating a kind of like a living document. It's kind of like a living mission statement. That's what it should be.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say that the companies that had authentic, original, and employee contributed mission statements probably aren't seeing the mass exodus that most companies are right now?
I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
That
it's yeah, there are very few I see that I think, wow, that company really buys into it. But those that do, I can see where they're probably not having the same problems
that's right.
that a lot of companies are.
And Michael, what we're talking about here is clear communication, and any vehicle that's going to allow us to do that, such as a mission statement, such as uh, where you get a conversation with that person that works for you on a regular basis, and not just waiting until the end of the year to do it, but having conversations around the water cooler, or just having conversations on the phone where you can just keep up to date. What's going on? How's it going? Hey, how you going with, or how's it going with this goal that you've set for the year that you're working on, as far as what the as part of your success plan that we put together for you at the beginning of the year. So these things all contribute. It's all part of that process of helping people connect and communicate and build that trust and rapport that we all need and want with whatever organization we're part of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In my coaching in the last several months, I have consistently been revisiting the concept that I first heard about
Hmm.
in the book Made to Stick, which is the curse of knowledge. I'm convinced this is the biggest communication problem we have. I live in my world every day. You live in yours. Our buddy Ray, who's joined us here today, by the way, put in the chat box, Tom Borg rocks.
Thank you,
Absolutely
Ray.
agree. Now, what we each have is this problem that we know our world and our topics so well that I spit out all of my jargon to you, and you're polite. You nod your head and say yes, and then you walk away thinking, I don't know what he just said, and I'm thinking, what's wrong with Tom? Is he dumb? No, I'm the one who's dumb for not making sure that I'm clear. Right. So in those circumstances, I think we have to be a little more assertive about saying to someone, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Hmm.
That we get involved. Oh, I don't want to look stupid.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes back to when we were in school in our younger days, where the teacher would ask the question, all right, boys and girls, any questions? And of course, we don't want to look stupid, because if we raise our hand, that means we didn't listen to the teacher. So people have learned very well not to raise any questions when you ask for them, unfortunately. And yeah, that's where we start to run into trouble, where people really don't get what we say. And as a result, miscommunication starts.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote where I read this. I think it's around the second or third grade we stop asking questions. And I love the example you just used, because one time too many, each of us raised our hand, gave an answer that was wrong. And what did our loving, supportive classmates do?
They made fun of us. Yeah.
You're stupid. Well, I guess I won't put myself in that position any longer.
That's
So
right.
we don't, but that adds to the problem too. And it's what I'm constantly working with my clients on this. You've got to be absolutely clear. I put myself what I call in the third row of the audience. And if I don't understand, I'm going to stop you and say, what does that mean?
Exactly.
And so, go ahead.
I was going to say, and Michael, we're hitting on something that's very, very basic and very deep with a lot of us. That is, we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of being wrong. We're afraid of being ostracized. And so we gotta recognize that we need to dig a little deeper when we're communicating with people. Just as you said, we need to make sure that we're clear. We need to ask those clarifying questions to make sure that they heard what we said.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, Tom, too, is when I talk with my clients, they are totally, and I don't mean this in a negative way,
Mhm.
they're oblivious to the fact that this is happening because, again, they know it so well. And when I ask them to step back, you can see it on their faces. They're like, I never realized that. And once they get it, they become far better communicators because now they're starting to think like the audience
Mhm.
and they're getting out of this whole, well, I know what I got to say and I got to get it out to you. No, my
Yeah.
job is to communicate.
Absolutely. And Michael, you do such a fantastic job with that, with the work that you do, because this is something we all need to work on a regular basis. Is what's the saying? The road to success is always under construction, and
Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
And we're creating a lot of our own potholes. But it goes
Can I
back to,
quote you on that?
yeah,
I like that.
absolutely. Go ahead. We cannot possibly coach ourselves on our communication. Forget my world of speaking and storytelling. It's all communication.
Mhm.
We really should. If we want to be the best possible communicators and eliminate a lot of this drama, run all of your communication through a friend or a coach. Or my buddy Ray, who's here, I will often send him something and he's very direct. Ray Ray doesn't hold back, which I appreciate.
Mhm.
But in the moment, it's like, oh, I thought I had it. So
Yeah,
back to the drawing board. But if you want to have an impact, reduce the drama, get somebody to run your communication through, and I promise you it'll make a huge difference.
totally agree.
Yeah.
Love
All
it.
right. I really appreciate your insight today, Tom. Let's go through one more question. Let me
Okay.
get me. Why is this not cooperating? Here we go. What is the biggest misconception, not just about the work you do, but about this whole concept of drama and the work you do to help people overcome that?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is people think, well, we're doing everything right, and what's an outsider going to tell me that I don't already know? And as a result, they avoid addressing the problem. So they just sense that I think the biggest problem is people don't want to admit that they've got issues that they need to resolve. And it's normal, and it's natural, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way the world's wired. I think that's a big area. That's the biggest area right there.
Well, yeah, and I have that same issue with folks. Once they drop their guard and say, I really need help with my presentation, my story. I mean, if
Hmm.
they're coachable, the difference is unbelievable.
Absolutely. I heard it once said, I think it was Les Brown that said this. He said, we don't ask for help because we're weak. We ask for help because we want to remain strong. And I think that's what we're doing with our clients. We're just helping them stay strong.
Yeah, and part of that too that I'm discovering, and and tell me if you've seen this too, is
Hmm.
it's that day that you're willing to be real, to
Yes.
show that yes, I've screwed up, and here's
Hmm.
where I learned from it. And
Hmm.
I'm sharing this with you. I think it's a sign of strength to stand up in front of a group of people, especially strangers, or really even your team who think they know you well,
Hmm.
and take the armor off.
Yes. Well, it goes right back to that concept of trust, building trust. When people can see that you are transparent enough to admit those mistakes when you make them, that allows them to feel, okay, I can do the same here too. And I can trust you because you are telling the truth. You did make a mistake. We all know that, but when you admit it, we now can even trust you more.
Well, I hadn't thought about this, but yeah, part of that trusting environment is trusting I think this word's getting used a lot now, but it's authenticity. I call it now being real.
Hmm.
If I can be real here, I can trust this environment to work in. That strikes me that would take a lot of drama out of the workplace too.
Yes. And remember, people want to feel basic, Michael, people want to feel loved. They want to feel accepted. That's what we're really working with here. So when there's that trust there, when people can trust you, you can trust them, that's creating an environment where they can feel safe and they can feel that they are part of something that they want to belong to.
All right, and this is what I should have done. Talk about being real. I should have gotten us to talk about a real good definition of drama before these questions. But now that we've talked about it, it strikes me that drama is rooted in a feeling of fear, of insecurity, of being in an environment where you don't feel safe, whether not so much physical, but emotional. Would that make sense?
That's a very accurate definition.
Okay.
I like it.
Now, next time I'll ask that question up front. Might even have more impact on the answers, but you can always go back and watch the recording.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
no, Tom, I appreciate you spending time with us here on a Friday afternoon, at least for us here where we are in the world.
Mm.
If people would like to get to know more about you, I'm going to put your information up here, but go to Tom Borg Consulting. Anything that you have, you can offer them that will, I'm going to put your information up here. There it is, tomborgconsulting.com. Anything you can give them, like any resources that will help them?
I think one of the best resources I think they could look at would be, well, if they come to my website, there's so much material there. They can download whatever they want there. There's a lot of articles, certainly blog posts. There's a lot of good stuff there. If they want to just come on by and visit the website, no obligation. They'll see something they can learn something from and take it back.
Yeah. Can they schedule a call with you there also?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they could. We've got the setup where you can just click the link and pick the time that you'd like to have a chat with me, and no obligation. We'll be happy to answer any questions you might have and maybe give you some insights that you might be looking for to help you just be that much better of a leader or an employee.
Yeah, and having gone through that conversation with Tom, I can promise you it's informative, no pressure, and he will give you some insights and some resources that will help you. But if you decide to engage him, I promise you, you also get a lot of benefit from that too. So before we go, if you would like to have any questions, I've got some resources. Go to this link, infone.co, and I'll put that in the chat box here in just a moment. You can reach out to me if you'd like to talk about any presentation or communication issues you or your team are having. If you join me next Friday, we'll do another 3 questions to better business. Once again, Tom, appreciate you. Appreciate
My
you
pleasure.
being with us today.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend. Same to everybody out there. Have a great weekend. And thanks for all of the folks watching us today.